a long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away. Smash Fiction, the podcast where we gather together the greatest nerd icons from all across pop culture and argue with each other about who is the strongest, who is the smartest, and who has the reddest lightsaber. This week, Darth Maul versus Darth Tyranus versus Darth Vader.
So we're just tossing the intro then.
This is a special occasion.
This is the special edition.
All right.
It is a period of civil war. Or at least it was, until the rebels blew up 2 Death Stars and killed the Emperor. Now it's kinda looking like a period of peace, maybe? I don't know. The Force Awakens hasn't come out yet, so we're a little fuzzy on the specifics of what happens post-Episode 6, but let's just say, yeah, it's a period of peace. The space birds are singing, the space sun is shining. What can go wrong now? Funny you should ask, because deep in the bowels of Cloud City on the planet Bespin, evil is afoot. On Tatooine, evil is an elbow, but on Bespin, evil is a foot. Pause for laughter. All right.
No pause necessary.
In a hidden laboratory chamber beneath Cloud City stands a man in a black robe. The lights overhead flicker ominously. The lights overhead flicker ominously. Around him are vats of mysterious, bubbling, dark liquids, red, glowing holographic displays, vents shooting clouds of smoke all over the place, and lots of those really cool glass lightning globe things. Before this man are 3 operating tables. Lying on the first table is a man in black with black and red face tattoos and an excessive amount of horns. Lying on the second table is another man, also in black, with a badass goatee, a badass cape, and a badass British accent. Lying on the third table is yet another man, in, you guessed it, black, with a face-concealing mask and a chest covered in switches, knobs, and lights. After the man in black, the one in the robe, extends his hands and electrifies all 3 bodies with a special secret type of force lightning and shouts out, "Eats alive!" a lot. The 3 figures on the table begin to stir and awaken. They sit up and look around the room, unfamiliar with their surroundings, but all recognizing the man that stands before them. He is their master, Emperor Palpatine, aka Darth Sidious. Sidious speaks, saying, "The power of the Force has brought me back from death, and it has allowed me to return the 3 of you as well. My 3 greatest apprentices, Darth Maul, Darth Tyranus, and Darth Vader."
That's a good Palpatine.
It's all
right?
worth it for that. The winner of tonight.
No.
The winner of this week's Smash Fiction is Colin's Darth Sidious impression.
Absolutely.
Silence! Darth Maul clears his throat. "Does this mean that you care about us, Master Sidious? I never found the right words before, but I care for you too." "What is that you're saying, Maul? Speak up. You do this thing sometimes where you mumble." "Forgive me, Master. I said, at last we shall reveal ourselves to the Jedi. At last we shall have our revenge." "Very good. Now, as you know, it is Sith custom for there to only be 2 of us at a time, a master and an apprentice. Now, obviously, I'm going to be the master, but I need 1 apprentice and only 1 apprentice. I order the 3 of you to battle to the death, here in the bowels of Cloud City. You shall have at your disposal your lightsabers, your force powers, and whatever else you can come up with. Do not stop until you are the last one living. And of course, don't be afraid to play dirty. We are the bad guys, after all." "One more question, Master," says Darth Vader. "If you can use the powers of the Force to heal us, why not restore my missing limbs? And why not bring Padme back from the dead? I miss her so much sometimes." "No more questions!" shouts Sidious. "This intro has gone on way too long already. Start fighting each other already." The 3 Sith Masters walk out into the dark and smoky Bespin carbon freezing chamber, draw their respective lightsabers, and the badass John Williams score starts playing. In the end, only 1 Dark Jedi will be left standing, but who will it be? I have so many thoughts on the matter, I can't even tell you. I'm gonna be honest, guys. I really wanted to be an advocate on this episode. I don't care who for, I love them all, but I haven't judged in a while, so now it's my turn to be judge. That's why I, Colin Mulcairn, will be your impartial judge this week.
Wow, way to bring down the room, Colin.
I really want to argue this week. It's Star Wars.
But see, this way you got to give your impression of Darth Sidious being a turn-of-the-century member of the House of Lords.
I guess so. Arguing for Darth Maul is Liz Logan.
My only goal is to not say Count Dookie.
Arguing for Darth Tyranus is Miles Schneiderman.
2 opponents. Good. Twice the pride, double the fall.
Arguing for Darth Vader is Dan Mulcairn.
Is Darth Vader gonna have to choke a bitch?
In order to see who was going first this week, I had the 3 contestants attempt to bullseye a Womprat in their T-16. Dan claimed that it was impossible even for a computer, so didn't even bother trying. Liz put in a real valiant effort and managed to graze one, but it was Miles who trusted in the voice of his disembodied mentor and disabled his targeting computer and closed his eyes.
That's right.
Miles is going to be going up first, followed by Miles will be Liz, and bringing up the rear will be Dan. Miles, take it away.
So first of all, Christopher Lee. I'm just going to say that one more time.
Oh, God.
Christopher
There it goes.
Lee. Just let's let it sink in. Christopher Lee. Just think about it for a second. I'll wait. Okay. It seems to me there are 3 key elements to this fight. You got force powers, you got lightsaber skills, and you have tactics, both in terms of pure strategy and in terms of, effective use of the environment. The first one is the one where Dooku has the most obvious advantage. Of the 3 Sith Lords fighting tonight, Dooku is the one who can use Force Lightning. And that's an insane advantage right off the bat. We've seen Force Lightning warp Emperor Palpatine's face, Force Lightning killed Mace Windu, Force Lightning completely incapacitated Luke Skywalker, and it did ultimately finish off Darth Vader. I mean, he had already been kind of beaten to shit by Luke, but Force Lightning was what finally did the job. So that's a huge weapon that Dooku has over the other 2. We also see him use his force powers to casually toss around huge metal objects and even bring down part of cave ceilings. Again, this is something we don't see that often from Maul and Vader. They're adept at manipulating smaller objects like lightsabers and, throats, but they don't toss heavy things around that often. The only other people we do see doing that, in the movies anyway, are Palpatine himself and Yoda. Attack of the Clones makes it pretty clear that Dooku and Yoda are equals in terms of their force powers, and you really can't make that comparison between Yoda and Maul or Yoda and Vader. So, lightsaber skills. I need to preface this by saying that Star Wars canon is a constantly changing and mutable thing, it seems. I mean, The Force Awakens is about to totally replace a shit ton of stuff that was considered canon right up until the film was announced, basically. Some of Dooku's history is expounded on in various sources, like the MMORPG Star Wars The Old Republic, and other sources that may or may not technically be considered canon, but this is smash fiction, and none of what I'm about to say is outside the realm of possibility or even really unlikely. So I'm going to say that it counts, and I'll leave it to our esteemed judge to decide how much of it should factor into his final decision. Cool?
None of it.
All right. Dan, did you just try to mind trick me?
I did not just try to mind trick you.
Okay, good. I'm glad.
Basically, Dooku is a master of lightsaber combat. He was trained by Jedi Master Thame Cerulean, and specifically trained in the lightsaber by Yoda himself. He is a master of the Makashi style, or Form 2, and according to the novel Yoda Dark Rendezvous, was considered one of the greatest duelists of his era. He was the equal of Mace Windu in lightsaber combat, and the only person that Mace Windu was second to was Yoda. And this is backed up by multiple sources, is that Dooku and Yoda were the only people who had a shot at taking out Windu in lightsaber combat. As a Jedi Master, he was actually a lightsaber instructor at the Academy, and holographic recordings of his fighting prowess were mandatory viewing for new Padawans. In short, there are very few people in the Star Wars universe who can hang against Dooku in a lightsaber duel, and none of them are in this match. And also, let's not forget, this is a 3-person combat. At any point, these characters could find themselves facing 2 opponents at the same time. Dooku is the only one with a reasonable level of experience in this situation. Vader has really only been seen dueling one-on-one or taking on one opponent alongside a trusted teammate. Maul fought Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan at the same time, but he couldn't get anything done against them until he managed to separate them with those weird red plot devices. I mean, energy shields, sorry. Dooku dispatched the team of Anakin and Obi-Wan on his own with relative ease in Attack of the Clones, and fought them again in Revenge of the Sith. He's also, in the comics and other media, been seen going up against more than one Jedi at the same time and defeating them. He's the guy you want in a 3-way free-for-all, because he's more familiar with the tactics involved in such a contest. And frankly, he's better at tactics in general. As Darth Tyranus, he was the Sith's tactical mastermind during a large part of the Clone Wars, deftly wielding a combination of brilliant intellect and cold ruthlessness. We've also seen him frequently take advantage of his surroundings in battle, bringing the ceiling down on Yoda in Attack of the Clones, and crushing Obi-Wan's legs with a metal platform or whatever in Revenge of the Sith. Of the 3 Sith Lords here tonight, Dooku is the only one who was a Jedi Master before turning to the dark side. He studied the ways of the Force for 80 years before the events of the prequel trilogy, ultimately becoming the greatest of the so-called Lost 20, the Jedi who willingly left the Order. When he embraced the dark side, he didn't do it out of fear, anger, or personal weakness. He did it because he had become disillusioned with the corruption of the Republic and the Jedi Order, and believed that he and Darth Sidious had similar ideas about reforming the galaxy. At one point near the end of the Clone Wars, he met with Yoda, who nearly convinced him to return to the Jedi fold. When you look at him this way, an idealist who embraced the dark side because it represented change over stagnation, you can see that Count Dooku encapsulates everything powerful about both the light and dark sides of the Force. And in closing, Christopher Lee.
All right. Very well done, Team Tyranus, team of one. Let's move along to another team of one, Team Maul. Liz, take it away.
All right, let me get my hiking boots on real quick. All right. So, what was the best part of the garbage-laden train wreck that was episode 1? If your answer is anything other than Darth Maul, you need to go buy a Jar Jar Binks blow-up doll, find a cave, and start each of your subsequent sentences with Misa Dum Dum. Darth Maul is the single bright light of the prequels because he is such a badass. Face tattoos? Check. Black clothes? Check. 100% more lightsaber than ever before? Check. Horns? Yeah, he's got those too. The first obvious strength of Darth Maul is his amazing lightsaber skills. Not only could he fight 2 well-trained Jedi at once, with an unconventional lightsaber, he was also able to shift styles mid-fight when his lightsaber was split apart and fight with 2 blades. He can adjust his fighting style on the fly and seriously mess up an opponent's flow or take them completely off guard. Plus, that guy can jump all over the place. He is by far the faster and more competent and agile lightsaber wielder. I mean, he killed Qui-Gon Jinn, a ridiculously powerful Jedi Master who discovered the secret to living forever via the Force. Before we even get to episode 1, Darth Maul had been killing tons of people. Warlords, criminals, all sorts of space folk. What did Vader do? Kill younglings and do his dirty work via his Nazi army. Dooku commanded spacefaring bugs? At least Maul is constantly getting his hands dirty and taking care of business. He has tons of experience. He is a stone-cold Sith assassin. He doesn't bother with hot-aired speeches like Tyranus or fearful shows of the Force like Vader. He just fucking kills people, whether others are aware or not. Rinse and repeat. And he does it with his own friggin' hands. He is an assassin. He is trained to do just that. All his training has revolved around that. Dooku and Vader's minds are way too clouded for pure fighting. And plus, Maul does not have the weakness of ever being a Jedi before he went to the dark side. Tyranus and Vader still have some semblance of a moral compass, and it shows. Maul definitely does not. He lets the hate flow through him. You know how Maul was discovered? Plagueis sent Sidious to Maul's homeworld of Dathomir, and lo and behold, Sidious finds Maul as a super Force-sensitive kid and decides to train him. And we know that shit in the Star Wars universe doesn't happen without a reason or meaning. Plus, Darth Maul would easily be able to handle all sorts of manifestations of the Force. He's pretty good at wielding it as well. Tyrannus' Force Lightning, that's where his 100% more lightsaber comes in. While he blocks the lightning with one blade of his lightsaber, his other can whip right around and slice Tyrannus up. Plus, Maul has survived the brunt of Sidious's Force Lightning. You know who didn't? Vader and Mace Windu. He could also easily block whatever other Force powers either Sith throw at him. He has demonstrated the power of Force Choke as well and can fight with his lightsaber at the same time. Plus, if Sidious even has any idea of what's good for him, Maul is the apprentice for him. Vader literally betrayed Sidious, so why would he want Vader as an apprentice again? Dooku is just too old. And
too old to be betrayed.
When 900 years old you are, look as good you will not.
If we're talking about Maul in the movie,
Christopher Lee.
Shut up. Well, okay, this is kind of sad, but he is dead now.
Low blow.
Anyways, if we're talking about just revolving in the movies, Maul is the only one who died in the movies while being loyal to the Emperor. And since we all know Sidious is a little schemer, I have no doubt that Sidious would subtly give some help to Maul as he is totally defeating Vader and Dooku, just like he did with all of his other apprentices. He's the obvious pick for Sidious. Plus, if this is happening after Episode 6, an assassin is exactly what Sidious needs. He already tried the army approach against the rebellion with Vader and with Tyranus and organizing the war and stuff, and it didn't really work. I mean, Vader could barely keep tabs on his own kids, whereas you send Maul, a trained hunter who is able to track down, Amidala and Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin super quick to eliminate the threats of the now Resistance. And if we're going to talk about what happened to Maul after he seemingly died in Episode 1, yeah, he didn't die. He survived being cut in half, being dumped in a trash world, and then survived for quite a while with half a body before having his lower half replaced with cybernetic legs. He even meets Obi-Wan multiple times after that, is able to taunt him and get a rise out of Obi-Wan, and then he meets him several times after that and is actually able to defeat him in combat. What has Tyranus done? Be lucky enough to be portrayed by Christopher Lee. And, you know, Darth Maul, there was a point where he was so powerful that even Sidious considered him a threat to his own position as Emperor. And then Sidious had captured Maul, turned him over to Tyrannus, and Maul was able to resist Tyrannus' torture, which probably consisted of the guy saying, "I'm Christopher Lee, you should be scared of me." And then Maul's just like, "I'm not." He's so good. He's a surgical fighter. He never shows a lot of emotion. He's skilled in many different facets of combat. And have you seen how that guy handles getting chopped in half? He barely flinches. He's great. He's great. Oh man, Darth Maul, all about that. The majesty that is Darth Maul. He's great.
Also, it's cool how he's got that like long tongue that whips out of his head and like has that mutant power where he's got slime on his hands. It's fucking awesome.
Do you know what happens to a Darth Maul when he is struck by lightning?
By force lightning?
I think we're about to find out.
Is it the same thing that happens to anything else?
Cool. Are we good, Liz?
Sure.
All right. I just want to say, kind of a cheap shot arguing that a villain who's assumed to be dead at the end of a work of fiction actually secretly survived and went on to have other adventures. I would never do that in one of my arguments. I mean, that just seems so... I'm going to mark you down for that. I'm sorry. It's just... So, Dan, Darth Vader, rise.
I feel a great disturbance in the Force, as if two voices suddenly cried out in delusion and are about to be silenced. I fear something wonderful is about to happen.
If you think my voice is about to be silenced, you haven't been paying attention to this podcast.
Guys, Vader has killed a ton of Jedi. After the initial purge, when Palpatine initiated Order 66, it was Vader who traveled from one end of the galaxy to the other, wiping out every last Jedi he came across. None of the other Darths can claim even a tenth of his body count. This gives him an unbelievable breadth of experience that neither Maul nor Tyrannus can hold a candle to. There is nothing either of them can pull on him that he hasn't already seen and defeated. Vader's connection to the Force runs down to his DNA. His birth was the result of the Force itself reacting to Darths Plagueis and Sidious attempting a dark side ritual. He has the highest midichlorian count in the history of the galaxy. Anakin began to have prophetic Force visions when he was 3 years old, and he first used the so-called Jedi mind trick at age 9. The supernatural reflexes he received from his connection to the Force allowed him to become arguably the galaxy's greatest pilot. Vader has only become more fearsome since his transition to the dark side. The movies should be more than enough to demonstrate how incredibly deadly he is. He fatally strangles Grand Admiral Ozzel over what's basically a Skype call. He's able to catch Han Solo's blaster bolts with his hands before disarming Solo at a distance, and during his battle with Luke in Cloud City, he demonstrates that he's able to telekinetically throw huge objects without having to make the usual throwing motion that pretty much every other Force user has to make. But we don't just have the movies to go on. Marvel's new Star Wars comics really showcase what a total badass Vader is. In these comics, we see Vader take on everyone in Jabba's throne room at once. He devastates a group of lightsaber-wielding cyborgs. He takes out a Y-Wing when he's on foot by throwing his lightsaber at it. At one point, Han Solo manages to commandeer an AT-AT, you know, the giant four-legged walkers from Hoth, and steps on Darth Vader with it. Or rather, he tries to, because Darth Vader telekinetically catches the gigantic foot and then dismantles the entire walker, all without moving. So, Vader's great. But how's he going to fare against the other two? Well, okay, so there's a ton of very specific tactical reasons why Vader can take them in pretty much any situation, which I'm sure we'll get into when we hit rebuttals. So for now, I will simply say this. Tyrannus knows about Maul. Vader knows about Maul. Vader knows about Tyrannus, and lest we forget, also killed Tyrannus the last time they fought. Neither of these guys know about Darth Vader. Tyrannus knows who Anakin Skywalker is, although his gross underestimation of Anakin's abilities would indicate that he actually didn't know Anakin Skywalker at all. Darth Vader knows both of these guys, and at various points has fought both of these guys. Vader not only has vastly superior abilities, he's also much more knowledgeable about both of his opponents. He knows exactly what Maul and Tyrannus bring to the table, but neither of them have a clue about the terrible things that are about to happen to them. There's no way Vader doesn't win this. Maul and Tyranus are doomed. Search your feelings. You know it to be true.
All right. Very strong opening
I'm
arguments.
searching. I'm
Yeah.
not finding any. I'm not finding that truth. I'm looking. It's not here. It's like car keys. I'm.
I know I left my feelings around here somewhere. All right. Very strong arguments from all three of you. Wow, I got no idea where I'm going right now. You've all doing a great job. So yeah, let's move on into some rebuttals. Let's start off with Darth Tyrannus. Everybody pile on Darth Tyrannus.
Bring it on, y'all. I sense great fear in you.
So as I said, Tyranus is old and weak, and his droopy lightsaber represents his droopy manhood.
Oh,
My God. You
So
got anything else?
Tyrannus
Because none of that's
is-
true.
I really love Christopher Lee. Oh my god. But anyways, separating that, Tyrannus is nothing but a weak puppet of Sidious. I mean, Maul even offers Tyrannus like, let's overtake Sidious. Like, he's kind of an asshole, don't you think? Oh, well, I don't want to do that. He's weak, he's boring. He's even literally controlled like a puppet by one of Maul's allies to fight Sidious. You know, Sidious actually considers Maul to be an actual threat to him eventually, whereas Tyrannus is just kind of like, whatever. He could barely even handle fighting against Yoda's acrobatic style of combat, not dissimilar to how Maul would fight him.
Much better than how Maul would fight him.
And Tyrannus could only escape that fight when he instead forced Yoda to save Anakin from dying.
Okay, they fought to a stalemate. It was very clear. Yoda was totally out of breath, and he was like, oh man, your skills have improved because I'm not beating you with either force powers or lightsaber powers. If Yoda takes on Maul with that shit, Maul's done.
Yeah, but let's look at the difference between Yoda and Tyrannus. So Tyrannus is, let's face it, an old man who's become extremely stubborn and dogmatic in his old age.
You're familiar with the way age works in Star Wars,
Well,
right? It's like
no.
especially for Jedi.
Here's the thing. Tyrannus believes that using two lightsabers is an unforgivable faux pas and refuses to use the lightsaber throw technique because it violates some weird rule about how a lightsaber should never leave your hand, a rule that, as far as I can tell, he just plain made up. He's inflexible in his thinking, and he will be quickly overtaken by those who don't play by his rules, such as his two opponents.
And yet, greatest swordsman of his age, which includes his two opponents. That's funny how that works.
Let me give you a description of Tyrannus. Tyrannus is like a politician who receives honorary powers for being useful. Sidious is like, well, you know, you're pretty influential and can get people to do what I want, so I'm going to give you this pretty light-up sword and teach you some force powers, just so it makes you more menacing, but I don't really expect you to take to it well.
Wow.
He's kind of a joke now. I mean,
this is so all of this is completely untrue. Just so you know, Colin.
Yeah,
I'm sure you do know, but this is all completely untrue. Tyrannus was Sidious's general in the Clone Wars. He planned most of the major tactical incursions going on during the Separatist movement. He was the one who came up with the idea to fake kidnap Palpatine, and he was a Jedi Master before he even met the dude.
and he was doing all of that from the comfort of a nice war room, surrounded by a bunch of advisors, standing over a table.
He went on numerous missions as a Jedi Master. Tyrannus was a field Jedi. One of the reasons he became so disenchanted with the Jedi Order is because he started to realize how much they treated the lives of him and his apprentices like dirt.
Miles, your argument that Dooku is the greatest lightsaber duelist of his age is all well and good, but you have to remember that the Darth Vader you're facing is from a good 20 to 30 years after he dies. And,
oh, absolutely.
And it's one thing to have as your character the fastest person in the world in the 80s, but I'm playing as Usain Bolt here. The bar has been raised considerably since Dooku's death.
First of all, I don't think that's the case, because when Dooku was around, the Jedi were at the heights of their power. The art of being a Jedi was the greatest form of civilization at the time. Vader's era, the Jedi have all but died out. I mean, he is looked on by his own people.
Yeah, you know why?
Because
he killed them. That's
He killed
why they died.
He killed a bunch of no-name pansies, man.
Yeah, like Mace Windu.
He killed a bunch of kids. Oh my god, he killed children. He
was
kill
not
Mace Windu.
really
Palpatine
responsible
did.
for Mace Windu, please.
Yeah, Palpatine killed Windu, dude.
Yeah, do you know what happened after the end of Revenge of the Sith, though? It was Vader that went off and killed all those thousands of Jedi that weren't killed in that movie.
But Dooku also has a body count of Jedi he has killed, and they are significantly more impressive Dooku beat Thulm and Sora Bulk simultaneously. He also defeated the Jedi Master Quinlan Vos. He beat General Grievous, and he beat his own apprentice, Asajj Ventress. Vader beat some Jedi,
I can think of one.
guess?
I can think of one Jedi that Vader killed.
Who's that?
Darth Tyranus.
Oh, yeah, so you want to talk about that? We can talk about that. That's fine, because
On his knees begging for his life.
Yeah, well, you know what? That was part of the plan. I don't know if you know this or not, but Tyrannus was not supposed to win that fight. Palpatine, Sidious, had told him to lose. The whole plan was for him to taunt Anakin, which he does, into tapping into the dark side of the Force, at which point Anakin was supposed to defeat Tyrannus. Sidious was going to step in and be like, come to the dark side. Tyrannus was supposed to be taken away as a war criminal. The fact that Sidious ordered Anakin to execute him was, like, completely by surprise, and you could see it on his face when it happened.
So did he not get the memo that there's only supposed to be 2 Sith at any time? Is that what happened?
I don't know. I think that it was part of the plan, man. He wasn't supposed to win that fight, so he didn't.
That's about our time. So, moving over to Darth Maul. Liz, get ready to defend Darth Maul. Everybody, say mean things about Maul.
He sucks.
Oh man, so much. So Vader actually has tons of experience fighting dark Jedi who focus on speed and 2 lightsaber blades. As Miles brought up earlier, there is Asajj Ventress, one of the main antagonists from the Clone Wars series, who wields a pair of lightsabers that can join together into a double-bladed lightsaber. So Ventress was every bit as fast and as vicious as Darth Maul, and had received Force training from Darth Tyranus to boot, but Anakin was consistently able to fight her either to a standstill or defeat her entirely, and that was years before he became the much more powerful Dark Lord of the Sith that he ultimately turned into.
Another thing about Darth Maul is just that I appreciate the fact that we have all this wacky-ass shit going on where he didn't die after he was cut in half, but the fact of the matter is that he was still cut in half by Obi-Wan when Obi-Wan was still a Padawan, and Dooku and Vader both beat him later. Dooku actually beat him twice. So, you know, there is the quality of competition argument to consider here.
I mean, if we're going to talk about who wins based on how many limbs they've lost, technically Darth Maul has only lost 2. Dooku's lost 2 if you count his head. And Anakin's lost like 5. So
Anakin's lost all of it.
They've all experienced that.
Anakin has lost more limbs than he currently has.
Yeah, but see,
like,
the thing is, it's awfully hard to wield a double-bladed lightsaber with one hand, and both Vader and Tyranus have shown a distinct proficiency with de-handing their enemies.
Also, you know, I went back and rewatched the best scene in Episode 1, as you quite accurately said, Liz, which doesn't speak highly for Episode
was it the
1.
one where they're talking about the trade routes?
What happens in that fight? Maul kills Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan comes out all mad and shit, and Maul basically kicks his ass too, knocks him down that shaft where he holds on to like a convenient knob in the wall, at which point Maul stands above him and, like, starts scraping sparks down on him for, like, no reason. And then Obi-Wan, like, blatantly looks at Qui-Gon's lightsaber because he's lost his own. Maul sees Obi-Wan looking and looks at Qui-Gon's lightsaber and looks back at Obi-Wan. And Obi-Wan looks up at Maul. Then he looks at the lightsaber. Then he looks back up at Maul. Then he jumps over him, force summons the lightsaber, and Maul kind of turns around and stares at him for a second before Obi-Wan cuts him in half.
I mean, again, you know, these arguments you're bringing against me are kind of moot points because they're all guilty of really stupid things. Tyranus didn't get the memo that there's only supposed to be 2 Sith Lords. He really thinks that he's not going to be betrayed by Sidious, who has shown that he's a dirty little schemer, as I said. Anakin decided to jump when he didn't have the proper positioning against Obi-Wan and turned into a mewling little burning baby.
You mean he didn't have the high ground?
They've all done stupid things.
First of all,
Maul is the better fighter. It's
no,
that's
that is 100% not true.
Tyrannus is an idealist, so it makes a little bit more sense for him to maybe trust Insidious a little bit more than he should. But the fact of the matter remains, you bring up the thing about there being 2 Sith Lords, you know? So when Maul became apprentice to Darth Sidious, Darth Plagius? What-
Plagueis.
Darth Plagiarize was also still alive at the time. They knowingly violated the rule about there only being 2 Sith, and the reason Darth Plagueis was okay with that was because Sidious was like, "Nah, dude, don't worry. This guy's expendable."
Yeah, as it turns out, Maul was never actually a Dark Lord of the Sith. He was always their puppet. From minute one, he was always being manipulated by those two. He was never a force into himself.
Their killing puppet.
That force.
He did not need to concern himself with politics, and I don't think we're going to be talking about being in charge of an army or dealing with politics in this fight. He is the purely trained fighter.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
He's not trained in the Jedi Academy.
So Vader once fought a clone of Darth Maul who was every bit the expert fighter that Maul had been. Maul thought that he had the edge on Vader and made the lethal mistake of getting in too close to Vader. And Vader delivered the fatal blow by stabbing his own lightsaber through his body and into Maul's. Vader was fine. Maul was not.
Again, it was a clone of him. If we're going to talk about clones in the Star Wars universe, why is every clone soldier not as skilled as frickin' Jango Fett? So that's, again, moot point. Doesn't matter.
Well, it's not a moot point. The Imperial March beats the hell out of Duel of the Fates. I don't care what you say.
Okay,
again,
if we've moved on to those kinds of arguments, I think that's a sign that we've spent enough time on this one.
I actually have other things to say, but I wanted to be 100% sure I got that argument in.
Okay, well, good.
Just out of curiosity, is that why you said Vader had encountered Maul before? Because he ran into that clone?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, also, Anakin, when he was 9 years old, did see Darth Maul, but, there's...
Like, for a second.
And waved at him.
And he was scared.
He could have taken him. He would have said yippee, and then Maul's head would have exploded.
Maul would have gouged his own eyes out, torn his own ears off.
Stuck his lightsaber in his ear.
It's Vader time. All right, everybody, attack Darth Vader.
It's Vader.
It's always Vader time.
It's Vader time.
Actually, did you know when you said that, Colin, about the wrestler Vader?
I did not.
Yeah, there was a wrestler named Vader, and when he came out to the ring, his music was, "It's time! It's time! It's Vader time!" So, well done.
Wow,
now,
good job.
Now I know. I mean, I did know that, obviously. That's why I said it. Miles.
Great wrestler, Vader.
All right. Well, is he a great contestant in this episode? Let's find out.
He is, but he's not good enough, unfortunately, because, Dan, for all the things you mentioned about how Vader is now more powerful and stuff, I mean, he is more powerful in the Force, that's for sure, but he's also partially mechanical, and that has been proven on numerous occasions to limit him. For example, we talked about how Dooku was the only one shown using Force lightning. One of the reasons that Vader can't use Force lightning is because he's partially mechanical, and it also, those mechanical parts render him uniquely vulnerable to Force lightning as well.
You would think so, but when Vader fights Galen Merrick during the Force Unleashed games, he's able to redirect Galen's Force lightning with little effort. And besides that, in Attack of the...
But if he actually gets hit with it, it's going to fuck him up.
It's not going to hit him, though. Vader is able, also in the Force Unleashed games, to create a barrier around himself that protects him from both lightsabers and Force abilities.
You've been basing your argument primarily around what Vader has done against non-Jedi individuals, non-lightsaber users, non-Force users. I appreciate the fact that in these games, Vader has special abilities that prevent him from taking damage. However, I submit to you that in a three-way Sith Master duel, he's going to find it a little bit more difficult to keep these defenses up as two different Sith Lords are hammering at him with lightsabers.
Not so much, because the thing is, Vader uses ASP-19 combat droids to train himself, so these droids are programmed with the skill of literally hundreds of lightsaber duelists combined with inhuman speed and strength.
They're still robots,
Vader
man.
had to keep ordering better and better versions because they were simply too easy for him to defeat, and eventually he had to fight multiple ASP-19s at a time just to keep from being bored.
That's not an argument in your favor, that he can defeat robots in training, and it was so easy that he had to get more.
Good against remotes is one thing. Good against the living? Sorry.
That's right. That's something else. And Tyrannus defeated Sifo Dyas, among others. He defeated his own apprentice, Kamari Vosa. I mentioned the ones earlier that he beat. I would argue that Tyrannus has a better track record of killing Jedi Masters as opposed to, kids in training than Vader does. And let's not forget, the reason that Vader has mechanical parts is that he lost that duel to Obi-Wan on that planet in the dumbest way possible. Way worse than Darth Maul's death.
Yeah.
That was some stupid shit.
Again, decades ago. Now, Anakin was trained in many different lightsaber styles, and not long after becoming a Sith Lord, he had easily mastered and blended together every known lightsaber form into one versatile style unlike any other. He became an unparalleled swordsman.
That is
He had
bullshit. Where did you read that?
dude, I tell you,
Where did you read that?
on Wikipedia, sir.
That's BS, man.
There is
I
no
read
Mary Sue
Wikipedia,
like
too. That's
there is
bullshit.
no Mary Sue like Anakin Skywalker. I tell
That
you.
is such crap,
But
dude. That's not even true.
He has this natural talent bolstered by his deep familiarity with any other style that an enemy could potentially use against him. But he has a lot more than just skill, because as we see when he confronts Luke in Cloud City, Vader overwhelms Luke with an assault that is powerful and merciless. It's all that Luke can do under the strength and fury of Vader's attacks, just to desperately try to survive.
Luke's not a Jedi
Okay,
at that
hold on.
point.
Let me speak. You brought up the most damning argument of all for Vader. He was taken down by his son, a guy with hardly any formal Jedi training, trained by Yoda, who was basically on his deathbed.
In a swamp.
Vader was only able to kill Sidious because all of his attention was focused on Luke. You could even go as far as to say that Vader was a coward and couldn't even take down Sidious in a fair fight. At least Darth Maul has the balls to try to take on Sidious. That's who he practices. Tyrannus and Vader are too weak to think for themselves. Maul knows what to do, and he's got the confidence, and he'll do it.
If
See,
Vader tried to take on Sidious in a fair fight, Sidious would just be like, hey, remember Padme? And he'd, like, collapse in a pool of his own tears.
See, the thing is, you guys are bringing up this issue of what happens at the end of Return of the Jedi when Luke is able to defeat Vader. It's interesting because these three characters all have something in common. They were all ultimately defeated by someone using the light side of the Force. And Vader, of the three of them,
Dooku wasn't.
Anakin at the time was straddling the line for sure. But
I think he was over the line.
well, yeah, he was defeated because it was Darth Vader who was fighting him. The light side of the Force is consistently seen as being able to defeat the dark side of the Force. And Vader, of the three of them, is the only one with any sort of connection to the light side. It's those positive feelings that he still retains that will allow him to get the edge over his opponents.
Well,
Dooku was a Jedi Master before he became a Sith Lord. He has so many connections to the light side of the Force.
He was. The only
He
person
still
the only person who turns back to the light is Vader.
if you're going to bring that up, then
on his fucking deathbed.
I will revisit what I said earlier about Sidious subtly helping out whoever he thinks would be the best apprentice. At least Maul, when he died, was still evil to the bone. When he came back from dead, he was still evil to the bone. This guy is a badass motherfucker, and he will always be a Sith dude. And
Okay.
Sidious is going to like that a lot, and he will
dude,
rep him.
I
mean,
can I say one more thing, Colin?
I have one more thing, too.
Yeah.
I have not talked a lot in this.
Yes,
Okay.
one more thing each. Say things.
And it's also very sad when you're saved by the most evil man in the Empire because he pities you. Please imagine that. You make a totally cutthroat evil person feel bad for you because you're so pathetic.
Vader was the chosen one. He had the most unlimited potential. He threw all that away on that lava planet when he got defeated and burned up by Obi-Wan. And I would argue that when we see him in the 4th, 5th, and 6th episodes of Star Wars, dude's gotten rusty. We see him in precisely 3 fights. The first one is against an elderly Obi-Wan Kenobi, which Vader wins because Kenobi inexplicably stops fighting and just lets him win. We see him against Luke in Cloud City, which, again, Luke's not a Jedi at that point. He's acting recklessly. He doesn't have any training. Of course Vader easily beats him. And then we see him later against Luke in Return of the Jedi, and he gets his ass kicked. So it's been a long time before he's been killing any Jedi or Jedi Masters or anything. He hasn't been training. He hasn't been keeping up his skills. We don't see him do it. Well, all we see is these kind of lame-ass excuses for competition.
Okay. Do you know what time it is, everybody? Everybody have any idea?
Vader time?
No, Vader time is over. It is time for the lightning round. The Force lightning round.
If you will not
what's
be
the
turned,
fucking-
then you
That's
will
like-
be lightning rounded.
Destroyed. Ah, that's the line I was looking forward to.
will die.
This is not the line you are looking for.
Now, young Skywalker, you will die.
Darth Vader.
All right, enough of that. So the
Enough of this.
yeah.
Vader, release him.
Aw. All right. 5 bonus points to Miles. All right. The three Sith have a really long fight that takes them all across the poorly lit corridors and ridiculously unsafe catwalks that make up the smoky bowels of Bespin. I just like the word bowels. I say bowels a lot. Anyway.
It's a good word.
Yeah, before finally ending up back in a circle around the carbon freezing pit. Vader, Tyranus, and Maul are all totally sweaty and exhausted, and although there has been a lot of exciting back and forth, none of them have yet managed to land a killing blow. It is at this point that a mysterious figure in the shadows uses his force powers to flip a switch on a nearby control panel, causing the floor beneath our contestants to fall away. The three Sith tumble into the carbon freezing pit, and the massive hulking machinery around them activates. Too tired to escape in time, our three contestants are flash frozen together into a single massive block of carbonite. The mysterious, shadowy figure speaks. Yusa in big doo-doo now.
Oh my god.
It is at this point that Darth
You read that
Sidious-
fan theory too, huh?
I'm getting to it, yes. It is at this point that Darth Sidious re-enters the room. He slowly approaches the figure, saying, "Ah, of course, my last remaining apprentice. You managed to remain hidden right under the noses of the Jedi for all these years." And
God, you're good at that.
thank you. His apprentice responds, "At last, we shall be revealing ourselves to the Jedi. At last, we shall be having our revenge." So yeah, for the inspiration for that bit, Google Darth Binks, and you will find a very well thought out and persuasive essay explaining how Jar Jar Binks is secretly an evil Force user who is manipulating the events of the prequels to his advantage and the advantage of Darth Sidious. The
Yeah,
evidence
it's
is there.
actually kind of terrifying.
It's pretty great. All right.
So the end? Is that?
Yeah,
is
the
that-
end. That's
Okay.
it. All right, we can all go home. No, we're just getting started. Come on. So we flash forward a very long time. After untold millennia spent drifting through space, the block of carbonite and the three Sith entombed within crash down on a remote and primitive planet. The three Sith in the carbonite soon awaken, and they find that they are on a planet known as Earth. And the year is ambiguously somewhere between like the 1700s and maybe even like the 1900s. It's an era of puffy hats and, very thin swords. It is an era of swashbuckling. Because you see...
Did we just do a reverse Inigo versus Zorro?
What? No, what?
A match you also judged? In
A
which you
match
sent them to the
also
Star Wars
judged.
universe?
What?
Oh, that's right. Yes, callbacks for the win.
Callbacks for the win. So, the three Sith now find themselves in an age of swashbuckling pulp action adventures, and the three of them are going to become dastardly pulp villains. After a while having all sorts of adventures, defeating would-be heroes at the edge of their blades, in Darth Maul's case, probably a double-sided rapier, I would imagine. The three of them managed to track down a very powerful fencing master who they say is looking for an apprentice. They travel to the mythical land of Arendelle and find themselves standing before a man dressed all in black, the King of Arendelle. I will not reveal his name for people who have not listened to the Inigo Montoya versus Zorro episode, but let's just say he used to have some adventures of his own in the Star Wars universe, and in that time, he was known as Darth Vulpus.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
All right, the three Sith draw their rapiers and square off in yet another battle to the death, for reals this time. So in addition to asking who would win this fight, I also need to know what title have you gained for yourself as an evil, dastardly fencing villain? What is your outfit? And what was your greatest adventure? So the order in the main round was Miles, Liz, Dan. So now we're going to go Dan, Liz, Miles. Dan, take it away.
Darth Vader was the name that he had in a galaxy far, far away. But here on Earth at this time, he is known only as the Breath Stealer. It is said that his heavy breathing is the combination of the breath from all the foes that he has slain and taken to himself, adding their strength to his own. So Vader's outfit has changed quite a bit since he came to Earth. In addition to spending a great deal of time in an ill-defined area of Europe, he also spent a lot of time in Asia, and specifically in Japan, where he began to augment his armor with samurai armor. It is there in Japan that he encountered his greatest adventure, wherein a small town of peasants had hired a group of 7 Ronin to defend themselves. Vader, of course, went in and killed all 7 of the Ronin by himself. Now, as far as Vader's attempts to fight Dooku and Maul in these new settings, first of all, rapiers were designed after armor became obsolete. They are designed to work against non-armored opponents. Against an opponent wearing armor, rapiers are effectively useless. Secondly, Vader is the only person in this match who has ever been to Earth, and has even been to Earth in this time period, as seen in...
What nonsense is this that we're doing?
As seen in Soul Calibur 4.
Oh, man.
You are so full of shit.
Listen,
coming out your ears.
I just say the truth, man.
Oh,
if
man.
that hurts you too bad, then I guess you're just going to have to lie down and admit who the superior Sith Lord is.
Ill-defined,
so much
semi-fantasy, historical
so
period,
much as it disgusts me and lowers my opinion of you as a person.
Listen,
Dan.
I have...
That's what this does.
I have kicked Raphael's ass in Soul Calibur with Darth Vader before. I can do it again.
I will own you so bad. I will own you so bad,
Well,
sir. Next time I'm in LA, we're going to do this.
That's it for me.
Moving on to Liz. Tell us what's been going on with Maul.
So Maul may not have been to Earth in some freak crossover accident, but he sure darn well looks the part of a crazy, evil, terrible pirate. He'd be well known and feared. Probably be really easy for him to recruit others to participate in his schemes. And he'd be known as the Thorn. And he got that name because every pirate ship he took over, every person he would defeat, he would tie them to a pole, take off all their clothes, and right in the middle of his chest, he would stand back about 20 feet, run full force, and then just headbutt them in the chest. And it would leave a horrible, bloody thing that would become to be called the Ring of Thorns. And he would be feared throughout the land because no one wants the Ring of Thorns, and then you'd be all embarrassed, like, oh my god, I have this horrible scar from the Thorn, and he's so evil and horrible. But anyways, his outfit would be beautiful black flowing robes that he also learned from time in Asia, but this time in China. And what he uses them for is he incorporates them into his fighting style and uses his different fabric and everything to hide his sword's position. And he also incorporates wushu and surprises his opponents with his beautiful acrobatics and his ability to quickly strike, which is perfectly suited to the rapiers he would be fighting with. And his best moment is motivated by revenge when he was kicked out of his little pirate kingdom in the Caribbean. He chased down this horrible British lord who was trying to establish some sort of trading monopoly in the Caribbean and push out all the pirates. And Maul was just incensed by the injustice, and he tracked him down, threw over his grappling hooks, came over, got that British lord, tore off all his clothes, and gave him the Ring of Thorns. And everyone was scared.
All right. Let's head on over to Miles and see what Tyranus has been up to since he came to Earth.
So, since he came to Earth, Tyranus has actually been doing a lot of research. He's a very learned man. You know, his intellect is more than the equal of both these two dumbasses over here, Maul, who doesn't have a brain in his head, and Vader, who has been proven to think with his cock instead of his mind.
Does he still have one of those?
I mean, you know, it's a cybernetic.
Dan,
it's a cybernetic.
You did a lot of
cybernetic talk with AI now.
Oh, right.
At
Okay,
least
good.
it's not droopy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Dan, you looked a lot into the expanded universe stuff. It seems you went pretty deep. I'm sure that had to come up at some point, right?
Well, I'll tell you what Vader did do was invent a protocol droid before the age of 9. I mean, that seems pretty smart to me.
Dan, you're not helping. You're not helping the
Outlet
case with this
for you
one.
to
You're not
make
helping
one
the
other
case.
argument for yourself. All right, look. What I'm saying is that Tyrannus did research, all right? And when constructing his new identity, he looked back through the histories of, villains who sort of had similar styles to him, even looked like him a little bit. Imagine that. So for his name, he went with Kato, the Stone-Hearted, found an obscure reference to some place called the Land of Faraway, and thought that the villain of that was really kind of he liked the name a great deal. So Kato the Stone-Hearted is his moniker. In terms of his dress, it's very kind of like French musketeer era with the puffy sleeves and very much a Rochefort type deal, if you will. And then in terms of his greatest adventure, on his way to Arendelle, he came across this other land and ended up kind of hanging out there for a while, built himself a tower, grew his hair out a little bit long, started working some magic. And there was this funny thing where this guy he thought was his friend came to him and was like, dude, we should oppose the ruler of this realm. We should take him down. And Tyrannus was like, what? No, what's wrong with you? He's the rightful lord. What are you doing? So, he locked up his friend in this tower. And because he had the foresight to murder all the eagles in the area before constructing this tower, his buddy, never got out and was rightly punished for his treason. And so, he was single-handedly responsible for maintaining the rightful lord of the realm atop his throne. In terms of the actual duel, I think it's pretty clear that Tyrannus has the edge in terms of tactics, and also the edge in, dueling. I mean, we're talking about a fencing fight right now, in which, Tyrannus is a fencer. That is what he is. That is the major advantage he has, aside from Force Lightning, over both of his opponents, is his ability to use a sword. So I don't think he'd have any difficulty taking down Darth Vulpus or whatever his name is. And last thing I'll say is that given the fact that we're dealing with the swashbuckling era right now, specifically villains of the swashbuckling era, I think it's clear that in this incarnation, Count Dooku, aka Darth Tyrannus, would be portrayed by Basil Rathbone.
Not Christopher Lee, the one weapon you keep turning to.
Thank you. That was the joke.
Okay, yeah, I need to go into my weird, seclusion chamber where there's going to be a little, suction cup thing that's going to pull off my helmet and reveal my weird misshapen head and, force meditate for a while on this. Force argue amongst yourself while I'm gone. All right, bye.
Dan, Liz, I think in this episode we have lived up to our unofficial motto. Less thinking,
oh man,
more yet.
There was virtually no thinking in this one. Although, I have to give you credit for being maybe the first person I've ever met to make a Mayo in the Land of Faraway reference.
Thank you.
That was pretty good. Oh, man.
Is Pirate Vader going to complain about how coarse, rough, and irritating sand is?
Well, he's a samurai, and of course he will, because it's
fucking hate sand. He gets everywhere.
Yeah. Even more so now that he's a cyborg. It gets in all of those delicate parts.
Did you find when you were coming up with your argument, Dan, that you had to kind of divorce yourself in your mind from Jake Lloyd and Hayden Christensen?
I did. I had to just
Embrace
look
it.
at them objectively. Okay, these guys are badasses, sure. Super annoying badasses, but badasses nonetheless. I like Anakin in the Clone Wars though.
In the show?
Yeah, in the animated show.
Yeah, that's actually pretty decent shit.
Yeah.
I was rewatching that scene where Anakin and Obi-Wan fight Dooku in Revenge of the Sith, and it's just oh my god. It's Obi-Wan stands up, "You won't get away this time, Dooku." And then Anakin's "My powers..." Anakin's "My powers have doubled since the last time we fought, Count."
Oh boy.
I'm oh my god, who is writing this?
I just
That's
love
not a rhetorical question, Miles.
I know.
the inner monologue, Anakin is making vocal when he's, "Oh, but he's unarmed. I shouldn't do this." I was just
oh, I know. It's ridiculous.
The second you have to literally vocalize, "I shouldn't do this," you probably shouldn't do this.
When the Chancellor's voice gets all raspy and he's "Do it," then maybe you should figure that he's not maybe the best of people when he's telling you to kill someone in that voice.
It's probably a Jedi mind trick or something. You know how these things are.
Oh, he didn't learn from Watto? He didn't learn the...
Well, let's...
Hey!
I'm a Rodney!
Oh,
the work on it, only money.
Little Rodney? What, Jedi? Little Rodney?
It's bad.
Hey, can we maybe do a redub of the entire prequels And just with us doing goofy voices.
I would so be okay with that.
Man.
I was really hoping that Liz hadn't bothered to find out that Darth Maul didn't die.
No, that's
from
pretty. That's like pretty low hanging fruit.
Yeah, I know.
Dude, I tried so hard in this argument. I'm like,
You did
oh
good.
God,
You did a
this
good
is gonna
job,
be
Liz.
so
Honestly,
hard.
I was thinking about this going in, and I was like, man, Liz has it tough, but you did a good job.
I'm glad no one brought up the fact that he was killed by an erroneous blaster shot by Owen Lars.
That I think is actually now like, for as non-canon as all of this stuff is, like that's
Yeah.
extra non-canon.
Yeah.
For as non-canon as Soul Calibur 4 is,
Well, you know, I gotta grab what I can, dude.
I was actually looked for that. I was like, all right, how did this guy die? Like, how can he? And nothing said it.
Nope.
Like,
Before the animated series, The Clone Wars was a thing. There was a one-shot Star Wars comic where Darth Maul returns when Obi-Wan is living on Tatooine, and he finds him and corners him, and they fight. And then, as Liz mentioned, Owen Lars kind of goofily kills him, partially
Nice.
accidentally.
Star Wars visionaries.
Yes.
Okay, I have returned, everyone.
Ah,
welcome back.
what is thy bidding, my
Bidding,
master?
Welcome, my master.
Oh, Jesus! We all...
You owe me a Coke.
Yeah, this is a really, really tough one. I know we say that a lot. Somebody that I warmed up to a lot over the course of these arguments was Tyrannus. All the stuff you're talking about, I was really won over by only one using Force Lightning. We see him being an equal to Yoda. That he's mastered both the light and dark side of the Force. That's all awesome. I think that the part that kind of killed it for me with Tyrannus, though, was talking about how he's so honor-bound. He's not willing to use certain techniques. The person I really want to give it to is Maul, honestly, because I think that this is a straight fight. And based on what we see in episode 1, she is such an amazing fighter. And from what we see in the films, Darth Vader is slow and clunky as hell, and like
Yes.
not a good fighter. And Maul, the dude who played Maul, could kick the ass of the dude who played Vader, David Prowse or whatever. But that's not really what it's about.
With that slime tongue.
Yes, with his slime tongue, and he could spit slime in Vader's eyes. It would be great. I really don't want Vader to win this. I really don't, because Dan pulled out all the stupid expanded universe arguments, and I hate them so much. Stopping an AT-AT leg with the Force, that's such BS. But I mean, it happened, and it, like, as we've talked about in the past, bad writing does not make something inadmissible. And
Yeah.
looking at all this stupid evidence about him like redirecting Force Lightning and like, I will destroy all of these, you know, droids that have been programmed with all the skills of the Jedi, said, I need more, make me fight 10 at the same time, you know?
It's kind of like how, you know, some Palladium games are still fun despite the fact that Kevin Simbeta can't fucking write.
So that's
Yeah.
half a shot right there.
I'm trying at least.
If it was just based on the movies, there's no way that Vader would win this thing. But because of all this stupid expanded universe stuff that Dan kept pulling out, like we can't argue against that. I think Vader's gonna win the day if it's that crazy expanded universe Vader. So I'm gonna say Darth Vader.
If I can convince you of only one thing tonight, aside
Yeah.
from the fact that Darth Vader would win, it is to check out the Star Wars comics from Marvel, because they are
Right.
awesome. Especially
and-
Darth Vader's solo series. It's really super good.
Liz, well fought. Dan, you should be ashamed of yourself, and I hope you are.
I had to draw on the dark side for this one, but I don't regret it.
Yeah.
You gave in to your age.
Yup.
I never existed in this episode. Poof.
Kid, just say hi.
Hi.
All right.
I think you mean beep boop.
Beep boop. The best character ever. They would kill all y'all. You know, you ever.
Yeah. The best subtitle in all of Star Wars is Sad Boop.
Yup.
See-
Wow.
When will I get to argue how great R2 is?
I don't know. Maybe him versus the robot from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh, I have to see that too.
Dude, that guy would just kill himself.
That's true.
Thank you very much, everyone, for listening to this episode of Smash Fiction. Next week, Riddick versus Daredevil.
Smash Fiction is produced by Miles Schneiderman, with logo design by Colin Mulcairn.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod for our theme song, which is called Hitman. You can find his work at www.incompetech.com.
You can follow the Smash Fiction Podcast on Twitter at SmashFicPodcast and search for us on Facebook and Tumblr.
Subscribe on iTunes, and if you leave us a good review, we shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other contributions, send them to us at smashfictionpodcast@gmail.com and help us continue the fight.
He has the highest midichlorian count in the history of the galaxy.
I'm sorry, Dan, you cut out for a second there. Did you say something in that last sentence? There was a word I couldn't quite pick up on. It sounded...
You didn't.
Are you saying, by the way, that Darth Vader has two daddies?
I'm trying to get through my openings
How
without...
progressive.
Colin really wanted to argue in this match.
I know! Sorry, I'm just going to be making silly jokes the whole time. Continue, Dan.
Believe me, I would love nothing more. So...
You know what's great about being the judge? No one can tell me to shut up.